Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronin, Nazarin Talks. I'm your host, Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films.
And I'm Nazarin Prod. I want to ignore. Please ignore me.
And today we're joined again by special guest Chris Mohan. How are you doing, Chris?
This is great. Still a special guest. It's always worth coming on, even just to hear those words alone. I'm doing well.
We'll want to demote you to guest.
Yeah, I think at this point it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, right.
And I'll let Nazarin Prod introduce this episode, as it was his genius idea.
Right, thank you. We're calling this Boutique Labels Deathmatch. This is my idea for Halloween. So it's not about horror movies. It's about, the idea is we're going to pit boutique labels against each other and see which one's the best. So what we've actually done, though, instead of having lots of ones where you get the bigger titles, bigger labels versus smaller labels, we'll split with two groups that'll be up at the end. So you've got the bigger groups in one section and then smaller labels in another section. So the final battle between a big label and a small label, which we can talk about the actual films they produce rather than the numbers. So that's the idea. So that we don't squash out some of the smaller independent labels that maybe easy to throw away. So I've set it up. So group one is Criterion, Arrow, Indicator, and BFI. And group two is Third Window, Second Run, Eureka, and Studio Canal. I see there's three of us here. So we couldn't get any draws. I mean, there was not two people we could have asked, but we thought three's better, so there's always one person to blame for us not choosing the one we think we should choose. So
and that's why I'm here.
Yes, that's why Ronin's here.
So we can get a consensus.
Yeah, we don't want
unless somebody threatens nuclear armament.
Yeah. I don't mean there were a few. It was one of those things we don't want to put up to four people because you knew somebody was going to say. I mean, it's forced fine for most other things, but because we're cutting stuff off, it's like no, we need three. That's it.
Yes, 8 enter, only 1 leaves alive.
Oh, yes. But we talked about in the chat that this wasn't going to be confrontational or anything, but it's changed from a battle to death match already.
Yes.
I said.
I mean, try not to send us death threats for us throwing stuff out, but
yes, because people will threaten nuclear war rather than concede a point. So,
but if you disagree with us, you can mock us as long as you're witty. That's the thing. We're fine being mocked with a witty comment, but that's as far as you're allowed to go.
Witty abuse.
No. Or we'll send Ronin after you.
Abuse.
And
I don't know if any of the listeners are witty. I don't think they've got it in them.
All right.
It's a challenge.
Right. Okay, so we'll do a group one and a group two and a group one and a group two. So we're always going back and forward. It's just to keep vary up. So the first death match we have is Criterion versus Arrow. We're off to the big gun straight away. So there's going to be a bloodbath already.
Who wants to go first? Chris, why don't you go first?
Oh, you're so kind. Right, my initial thoughts are that I thought this was going to be like so easy when I first started thinking about it. But there's one massive mitigating factor in this, and it wasn't a factor until about 3 months ago. And that's the price rise of Criterion's has actually changed this conversation massively in my head in like the past couple of weeks. They are by far, and I mean by far and away, the most expensive release now for a standard release across the board. I think all things being equal, Criterion have the spread of films that I would more naturally gravitate towards. So that mix of classic Hollywood, world cinema, and kind of things that nobody's ever heard of or seen. Kind of under the radar stuff. Whereas Arrow, much more that kind of genre cinema thing, although they do diversify as well in their own way.
One thing I should say is we don't need to see what choices are until we do the final choice. So we'll let everyone talk before we give a choice. You can give the pros and cons of everyone before you. So that means that there's no pressure of the final person. Of two people have gone the same way. They're like, oh god, what do I do?
We should really hold cards up all at the same time.
Well,
Yeah.
then that would mean some sort of preparation, which I'm not sure any of us are ready for.
Yeah.
You get post-it notes somewhere.
Yeah.
Can hold up a release. No, so I actually haven't made my mind up yet. So I remain to be convinced by both you two fine fellas.
We're going to give a hell of a job convincing them.
I mean, one way to look at them, I guess, is how many titles in each label do you have? How many titles would you be interested in? Whether it's a personal view or whether you're trying to be objective about it. But I think that this is obviously personal rather than objective. Like you say, the Criterion price, only imprint is really more expensive. But maybe they'll be in the discussion next year if we do it again. Arrow recently is obviously going into the 4K and re-releasing films and upgrades. Now, yes, they're still doing those damaging box sets, which are absolutely amazing. But the core stuff, I mean, how many more 80s slashers do we really need? But their packaging's nice. You know, Criterion, again, even if I had the money, I wouldn't get all of them, which again is the same for most labels, apart from one we'll talk about.
And that's your addiction more than anything. That's
an addiction. But again, I think more recently there's less titles that Criterion are releasing that I'm that interested in. But again, generally when you watch one, you go, "Oh my god, that's fantastic!"
That's good.
And that's one of all these labels' strength. Talking about films you've never heard of. But I also do think Criterion do seem to be releasing films that other boutiques have recently released. And it's almost as if they're saying, well, we're Criterion, people will buy ours, even although, like, take Throwdown, for example. Eureka released a really good version of that, and then recently Criterion have done it as well. And again, it's almost this, we're the biggest bully on the block, if people will buy ours. And it's like, I think people are kind of slowly realising, you know what, we don't have to buy Criterion, unless obviously you're completist. So both of them, I think, have, even although their past record has been really good, I think they're both kind of struggling now as far as what they're releasing and who actually wants to buy it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've got against Criterion at the moment as well is they're releasing a lot of films that are just new. And Criterion used to be, you had to earn it to be in Criterion, you had to be really good. And they're still releasing stuff like Boat People and things like that are older films that are really terrific. But they're releasing stuff that's just coming on Netflix. They released The Irishman, which I just think is an offence that you would release this thing Criterion. Yeah. But they've released a lot of stuff, like One Night Miami, it's just been released, and it's like, they have not stood the test of time. They should not be in a Criterion collection at least for another 5 years before you actually decide, I'm going to put this in. It's obviously an important film. They have been cheating a lot recently, I think, on their on what they are is like, we will put stuff out that is really worth seeing. It's like some of these films are not at the level of something like Bergman or some of the Cronenberg stuff like Crashed or, you know, Kurosawa or something. It's like they're not at that level, and they haven't proven themselves to that level. And Criterion have been throwing a fast one recently. I also think Arrow has as well, with some of the releases have been stuff that are total trash, you know. But there's been some great stuff too, like the Shawscope stuff, and they're doing the Ju-On things. There's lots of stuff there. I'm doing Croupier. Both of them still have great stuff. But always starting to feel like both of them is they've got a few people, 3 programmers, and one programmer's great, another programmer's dodgy as hell. It's like it's kind of inconsistent. So you get some really good stuff, but you're also getting stuff that's like, why would you release that here? What's the point? And I think also with Criterion, because it's so expensive, like, I'm not buying Criterion Tulsa sale. There's just no way it's justifiable. Like £24, £27 for a Criterion, and it's pretty much the same as you get on a lot of the same places we're going to talk about later on. It's like, I mean, Radiance has just come out, right? They haven't even released the first film, and I'm pretty sure Radiance extras are better than anything in Criterion recently.
Mm.
Because they're starting up, and it's like, well, they put the effort in, and they're doing obscure films. It's like some of these films should be in Criterion, and it's like, and that's the problem with Criterion. It's just like they're releasing things that aren't worthy of the name.
Yeah, like, because I think you are right. I mean, both of them are kind of living on their name and past glories, and people will continue to buy because of the name. And you're right, Criterion is supposed to be a curated collection of important films historically. And again, you can't judge that if a film's been out for a year. I mean, for me, I always kind of had a rule that you can't really judge a film properly unless you've watched it at least 3 times, preferably 5 times. And there's been a period of time between these watches over time. And I think that's what Criterion were built on. And for them, as you say, to release films that were released last year and this year, it does seem that they're trying to not pander to a new audience, but they are kind of trying to stay relevant, but that's not what they were built on.
Plus, they're losing staff as well, so it's obviously something's up. Something's up there. Like, maybe they expanded too quick or something, but it does seem like there's a problem. But it's also thinking, have they released all the big titles and now they have to redo them in 4K or something just to redo the same stuff? It just feels like there's not much imagination. But I was going through the same thing. That's why I put them both together. Because I think they're both offering the same problem.
Yeah, they're two titans that are struggling a bit.
See, I would take a slightly different view of it. I think both are a product of the fact that the marketplace has become much more competitive. So the films that Criterion were releasing, say, classic Hollywood or classic world cinema, there's other labels doing that as well and seeing that they could get a bit of the pie. So that became a lot more competitive. But also, like, the point about recent films not standing the test time is true, but it also doesn't dismiss the fact that a lot of those films are great. You know, so I would say actually Arrow's real sweet spot for the past while has been this modern genre cinema. So you think of like older titles going back, like The Endless, you know, After Midnight, all of that kind of stuff that they started doing, and then come into stuff that they've released this year. Like I've just recorded a watch list which has The Sacred Spirit in it.
Yeah.
Right? And like I haven't heard anybody talk about Sacred Spirit, and probably for good reason, because as I said in my video, I'm not even sure I can recommend it because it made me so angry that the film was made. But there's a good example of a film that I would never have come across my radar or haven't talked about. And the release that they put together with it kind of elevates it in an Arrow style in the same way that, you know, these modern films, whether One Night in Miami or otherwise, they elevate it by kind of surrounding it with the more recent extras and stuff that you can do, the things that modern films have better access to, because making extras about a film from 1930 is quite difficult in this day and age. So you kind of cobble something together in some ways, whereas modern films, obviously, you can put together as complete a package as you want. So I think when the point is true, I think films can still be worthy or still be worth talking about, especially for the likes of me and who just don't watch modern films unless they are released on labels like these. It just would not happen. So I think it's an interesting conversation for sure, though.
Yeah. But one thing I would say though is there's still wrestling films that are barely released that Criterion should have been doing. There's still like Kurosawa stuff that's just in DVD that they should be releasing. There's lots of stuff they could be bringing out. If they want to do the modern stuff, do a bit less modern stuff and mix it. But I just think it's been an influx. And again, I was the same way. I think Arrow's done a lot of stuff that's trash now that you're like, why would everyone want to release that? But I mean, I think the both thing is like, I'm not looking forward to the releases as much anymore, is my feeling. Is like, I don't care as much anymore. I used to care a lot.
I'm very much in one of those. I'm in an Arrow at the moment. You know where you kind of go through the rotations of labels of you're like, I'm just watching buy all of this stuff. Arrow's my in, and it always sort of goes with some of the sales. So you buy one or two titles of stuff that you kind of picked out, and I'll throw that in as well, and I'll throw that in as well, and then it comes, and then you watch it, and you go, oh God, I missed out on that. And
Yeah.
that's you in problem.
Yeah.
I mean, my problem is my Arrow is my biggest backlog at the moment, so I haven't actually bought anything in an Arrow sale for about 3 years. So I'm slowly getting through them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So shall we vote then?
Yes.
That's right. So what I would say is, I'll say one and you put your hand up. What was that? And then the other one, put your hand up so you're not actually looking. How's that?
Or
do
we
you
all just say it at the same time.
Yeah, just everyone say it at the same time. Maybe that's the best thing.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Right. 3, 2, 1.
Criterion.
Arrow. Ooh.
Oh! I did not expect that so quick. To Criterion to lose out so quick.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
I thought I'd be the lone one.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought I was going to go with Criterion, and then on the discussion, it was like, yeah, maybe Arrow, but then Criterion, to me, just have the better films, I suppose, on a whole. But
yeah, I think I've the bias is recently. I think Arrow, the box sets and stuff are.
Yeah, the box sets are
there's no losers so here. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a preference, and it's like
for me, it's entirely the price at this point. If they still had been £18, it's in my head of when I'm planning for the next month or the next couple of months and thinking, right, what will I pick up and look at what's coming up next? I'm looking at the Shaw's Group set. I'm looking at that Lucas Moodysson set. I'm looking at a couple of other things and I'm going, yes, the Ju-on set. I'm definitely going for those. For the Criterion stuff. Yeah. At the Criterion stuff, I'm going, I'll wait for a sale for all of them pretty much. The Internal Affairs is one of the ones that it'll say, I'll pick that one up. But other than that, we're struggling.
You get Internal Affairs already in Bluray, though. That's the thing.
That's
I've got the trilogy on another release, so there's no way I'm buying the Criterion.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, I think it's quite good, though, that the big gun has been taken out, so it's going to be a much fresher thing. And it's not serious, we're just having fun. We like them all. But Criterion, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and like it's shocking for me because I have about 300 Criterion titles. It's not as if they have a small part of my collection. So you know,
I can see all mine's over there, and there's tons of them. It's like,
I mean, for me, to be honest, I think the Region A Criterions are the ones that are more interesting to me because the absolute gems are found in Region A Criterion.
Yeah, I think that might be the
Region
problem.
B. So
the problem is the Region B Criterion is not that great, and that's what we're getting.
Whereas all of them were available.
I think all of them, Criterion in a much better place because we're Region B. It's not quite as good as.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you only need to look at. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if all those Region A's or Region B at the same price as the Region B, then that would be different.
Then you'd be tough.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, like the January announcements, they're down to 2 for January, and one of them is the goddamn Breakfast Club, which nobody needs to spend £23 in the Breakfast Club. And I do own the Region A Criterion for it, but it was one of those ones you sit on it, you get it for a reasonable price, you buy it, then I don't know.
Yeah.
Have my whinge about that.
But then you could say Arrow, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I mean,
well, again, but don't need to buy that either. Except they probably will when it drops to a point where you're like, 4K for £23? Why? Ridiculous nonsense that goes into my head.
Yeah. So he's definitely buying it. He's definitely buying it. Right. So we're going to go to Group B. So I'm underlining what we chose each time. So
so professional. I just new levels.
It's just otherwise I'm stupid otherwise, so I'll mess it all up if I don't do it this way. So
this podcast's almost unrecognizable from what it was a few months ago. Just that levels.
And I'm up putting my hangover, so it's especially miracles. You know
how ridiculous was I decided not to have a drink last night because we had a sort of early start this morning. Like, how nonsense.
Look, I had Chronicles of Riddick to watch and I had a bottle of wine. That was a perfect combination. You can't resist that.
It sounds like a much better Saturday night than mine for sure.
It was actually a double bill of Most Dangerous Game and Chronicles of Riddick and a bottle of wine. I've got to see it. I thought it was pretty classy.
Yes.
For a Saturday night. Not for a normal day, but for Saturday night, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
You're just delaying this horrible choice.
Yeah, I
How
know.
does it
So
take you to underline something? Dear God.
I've underlined it. You were just talking. I've underlined it 2 minutes ago.
I think this one's going to be the hardest.
What, third window
Yeah.
versus second run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a really nice pairing, I have to
Yeah.
say, without me going first, to say that they both have their niche of like really interesting films that literally nobody else is releasing. Like
Yeah.
nobody else is going near these. There's not like a big market for a lot of these titles. So I'll let somebody else go first and say what first last time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the problem. These are the two titles. These two are the. Well, these are put them together. So this one is. These are the two that destroy my bank account more than anyone else. These are the two that are the worst offenders for me at the moment for making me skint. You know, they're terrible for me. They're really terrible. They do so much damage to me. And I adore both of them. So I could have put them separate ones and voted for them both of them, but I thought, no, I would get us out of the way. And my main point is they're both great, and
Yes, for sure.
but they're different. No, one's Japanese and one's Eastern Europe mainly, and they're both covering lots and lots of films, and they're both just either have had or just about to release great box sets. I mean, you had the Toyota box set, 2 box sets of that. You've got the Oshida box sets now. Meanwhile, that's from the third window. Meanwhile, second run has the Andrzej Wajda trilogy coming out next month. These are awesome box sets that should be celebrated. Anyone having these it's an example of great passion for cinema, because these are films that should be out. And just some of the other stuff that they've had, second runs had like all the Polish animated films. They've had just some great stuff. They've had Liberty. They've had the Beauty and the Beast film that both Ronin and I have talked about. They've just had some amazing runs, and they're just beautiful. And the Japanese one with the third window, they've had some amazing stuff as well. Just like great films you never heard of that suddenly appeared. They're the ones that got One Cut the Dead out about. They're the ones who are responsible for it.
Yeah. Getting
released properly. So both of them are like top class. So I've still no idea who to choose. This is the one that was like, this is the hard one for me, so I'll pass it off to you two.
There you go, Chris.
Oh dear. Well, I think it's worth saying that both labels are the product of a single person. There's one person really picks and chooses, and even in Third Window's case, does the artwork and everything for a lot of them. Although it seems like he's probably outsourced some of that recently for some of those big box sets like you talked about. I have a deep love for both of these because, again, it's just, you know, kind of what you're getting when you pop one of those films in the disc. You're probably thinking to yourself, one, I know nothing about it. Two, I know that it might be something that I need to dig into a little bit or have a bit of patience with. Like even something like One Cut of the Dead, the amount of people that must have turned that off after 20 minutes and thought this is the biggest load of trash I have ever seen in my life, I'm sure it was quite large. But even my wife's seen One Cut of the Dead now and went, that was really cool. You know, and it's far outside my wife's sphere of cinema, as you can probably think of. But to sell Third Window even short, just to say it's that, like Sean Sono's films are pretty much exclusively on there. Even Kitano's films, aside from a box set here and there, are on Third Window. You've got the Obayashi films and obviously two of the films. So they definitely key in on certain directors, a bit like Second Run do. You know, that kind of Eastern European, Czech New Wave stuff that's there. For me, I'm obviously a bit of a stand for Second Run in general. Even though I was looking last night, I've still only probably seen about 60% of the releases that I have on my shelf for it. But everyone just feels like such a treat for me. You know, every time I stick one on, it's like, oh, this could be about nothing in some cases. Like I watched Black Peter there recently, and it's kind of about nothing. And yet it's kind of fantastic as well, you know, and seeing and learning about the actors and performers and directors and stuff from those kind of regions is just so exciting every time you put one of those through.
Yeah, because every time they announce something, I'm really excited. That's why I know what's coming. It's just that got the excitement for me.
Yeah, the Hungarian Masters 3 set as well.
I think it's probably worth talking about because a lot of people will not have seen very much Third Window or Second Run. Kind of a couple of the titles that, if you haven't been near, you should definitely check out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Ronin go on now because he's the.
Well, I mean, for me, this is the hardest as well. Even though I don't have a huge amount of titles, it comes down to consistency, I think. But again, they're both fairly consistent. I think Third Window perhaps have a higher consistency, but the highs from Second Run are probably higher, if you know what I mean. Because there's some just jaw-droppingly amazing films in Second Run. So Vampire Kiadachuk, again, which has no explanation really, you have to just see it. The Emperor's Naked Army marches on. Again, you can't really describe it, you have to see it. The Beauty and the Beast, which Chris got us onto, for me is just jaw-droppingly good. And again, there's plenty of others. So the highs, the peaks for Second Run, I think are perhaps higher than Third Window, but Third Window's consistency overall. Because for me, there's 2 or 3 Second Runs I've got that I just didn't kind of enjoy as much. I still like 3-star films, but I just didn't really. Whereas the average for Third Window is probably 4-star films. But again, for me, as much as I love Toyoda, as Tsukamoto especially, who you can only get on Arrow Region A, sadly. But the peaks of Second Run are, some of them are just jaw-droppingly, I wouldn't say life-changing, but they're just jaw-droppingly amazing.
Yeah.
That's not an answer.
I know, I'm trying to keep it interesting. I've moved it around a little bit, trying to keep the different areas interesting enough so it wouldn't just be what's the final one, so we could talk a little bit more.
This is tough.
Yeah. It's just there's so many, even you're talking about the Sono stuff as well, and then you think about all the Second Run, like the animated ones from the 60s, the Baron Munchausen stuff as well.
Yeah.
And Ikari as well, the Russian sci-fi movies.
And of course, sorry, I forgot. I wake up tomorrow and scald myself with tea.
I mean,
holy shit. That
is amazing as that film.
Amazing.
I've yet to see that one. It's on my to-watch list. I haven't gone through Halloween yet, so...
It's so good.
It's so tough. It's so tough.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones I would say, Melancholic.
That's fantastic.
A brilliant film. Fish Story I have not a lot of time for. Himizu, which is a solo film, but again, Himizu's out of stock and I cannot get that anywhere. Like, it's went out of print, and goddamn, why is it gone out of print? There are loads of really great.
They've also got one of my favourites recent ones, Top Knot Detective, which is just so funny. It's just
to see that.
And your Valence Voyager as well, the Cheetah ones.
They're amazing.
Like, I mean, who else is releasing that stuff? Like, nobody else is releasing that in the same way that nobody else is releasing Nickery XB1 or Emperor's Naked Army Marches On. Stuff like, there's nobody else, or even Checkmate. Like, Checkmate's how many hours long, and it's just a documentary about a single filmmaker. And I was like, what are you doing releasing this? He says, well, nobody else is going to do it, and this will be the only release that it ever has, probably in this country. There's
I would suggest to put it out of misery. We're going to choose right now, and we're going to see where we.
Do I have to?
This is painful. This
Why didn't we get a fourth person on?
Why didn't we go for 5 so you can hide?
Okay. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Okay. Right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Go.
Second run.
Second run.
Right. Second run. That's the thing is.
That was really tough. Going into it, I actually thought Third Window, but
I know.
I knew that Ronin was the tiebreaker there for sure.
Just those highs.
Yeah.
For Second Run.
Come on.
I feel bad though, but
they're all great. They even be involved.
That's the message. They're all great.
Even be involved in such a prestigious kind of competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is enough.
I hope they're all watching this.
Yeah. And watch our pain. So we're going to say third window, get the hell out of here.
Toodaloo.
Sadly, you
Alas.
have to slink away into the corner.
Alas. That was painful though. That counts almost as torture.
It does. There's almost certainly somebody that's turned off the video at this point and went, "Oh, this is just such nonsense.
Well, at least it wasn't
I can't listen anymore."
It was just unanimous, and basically, I'm not the person who's going to get the death threats, which is what I feel good about.
Have to find me first.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if any of them are unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going back to group one now. We're going Indicator versus BFI. And we're going to get Ronin start because I started one and Chris started one, so it's Ronin's turn to start one.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I am complete in Indicator, but I'm sure that won't cloud my judgment.
Of course not.
The cons of Indicator, people could argue they haven't released masterpieces after masterpiece. Their films are of a certain kind. With a few exceptions, they haven't released non-English language films. They release films within a certain ballpark, certain genres that may not interest people. But I do find even if a film is like a 3-star for you, there's usually an extra. The work they put into the supplements is phenomenal. Their box sets are absolutely beautiful. And again, because it's a small run business, I like to support them through that, the same way I like to order through Third Window. BFI, I do love as well. Obviously, they're providing a nice alternative to the Criterion Bergman box set with 4 volumes of that themselves. I do find, though, BFI are quite expensive. I would like to buy BFI a lot more through their site, but even when they have a sale on, it's like £2 off. So their sales aren't actually that attractive, unfortunately. And I know they have to, because they work on restoration and they work on other projects, so that's absolutely fine. But I do think they're a wee bit expensive as well. Obviously, for some titles, you don't actually mind that. And again, they have a broad genre of kind of classic titles, but also older films and really obscure films. Obviously, I was happy to finally get the Jarman sets, which are wonderful. And also they do throwbacks, and their extras are generally always wonderful. They did One of Our Aircraft is Missing, and again, I think we've all said that Pearl and Pressburger films should all be on Blu-ray as part of national heritage. So even although I am Indicator complete, I obviously have a lot of BFI titles, and I've got a lot of love and time for BFI.
Okay, do you go Chris or me?
I'll go for BFI. I'll go for a talking BFI because I actually bought pretty much every BFI release that was released last year. I think that a great year last year. I think BFI's output is sort of tinged or celebrated by the fact that they obviously have a mission that they have to fulfill. So they have done a lot of the COI films. They have done like the children's TV box sets, the Children's Film Foundation. They've done Play for the Day. So they pull an awful lot from the archives of like British TV, British film heritage, and repurpose those. And for some people, they'll really hit. And for some people, they'll miss a little bit, depending on your connection to that time. But how cool is it that we have it? Like I go through some of those. I go through some runs of those Children's Film Foundation films and go, these are so cool that these are in and DVD quality, but the DVDs upscaled really nicely. They're really nice in codes of DVDs. They're on there, even the likes of their documentary box sets and the Shadows of Promise, the war films that are there. They're all like some of the most precious things that I have in my entire collection because they're the kind of things that you're not seeing anywhere else at all. Add to that the fact that they've basically just done the Truffaut and the Bresson films, and released with common theme and really good extras. I would say actually the recent Truffaut releases, etc., outstripped the Criterion versions in terms of content and extras and things that are on them. And while they sort of are expensive, they're still an awful lot cheaper than Criterion versions or other ones that you can get. Sure. The other thing that they have is this really dedicated team that's very open about discussing the titles that they can get or they can't get. Like their Facebook group has all of the people that make the releases in discussing what's possible, things that they're excited for, kind of problems. And just to finish to say that I think the couple of 4K releases that they put together are amazing. Like obviously they started with Seven Samurai, which was kind of predictable, but from that we've had Get Carter, Proposition, and then Watership Down, and those are not, I would say, easy releases to put out in 4K. You know, there were ones that they could have released that could have been way more, you know, famed or lauded, but I think those three titles and the packaging, etc., they've done are absolutely spectacular in what they've done. So I'm always excited by BFI.
Plus they have the flip side.
Plus, on the BFI flip side range is amazing as well. I watched The Appointment this year as well, which I know at least you have one as well. It's a brilliant release of a really good and interesting film that, again, nobody else is doing that film in any way, shape, or form and releasing it out. So that's BFI. Indicator, you've done a pretty good job of explaining in terms of what they do well. They also do phenomenal box sets.
Yeah.
I am very much tainted by the fact that they ever went near that Stanley Long box set. I just still query
that's the one
what the need for that was.
Yeah.
Although I'm an idiot because I bloody bought it.
Yep.
I
never. It has wonderful interviews about British film history and
it does.
Place
but the
in film history
themselves are
I'll never watch them again.
Rubbish. I mean, I very rarely will I be dismissive of any film, actually, you know, for being trash, but I just don't see their need to have somebody taking care and presenting those in a better light, because I don't think that there's much merit in them at all. But aside from that,
even though Vic Pratt, who's involved with the BFI, was heavily involved in that set and starred in like pastiches, so it's like
everybody has their little niche, don't they? I think that's fair to say. But everything else that they do, obviously, I'm into Eureka Complete as well. And you know, it's like a little nugget of joy dropping into my letterbox every month, or set on my doorstep of like, here's your box of treats.
Yeah. Again, I think BFI has the higher mark, the higher peaks, obviously. And getting those breasts on, and hopefully more breasts on, that's certainly a big selling point.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's weird because I think BFI is one of the ones I've got way more BFI than I thought I ever had, because I buy them a lot, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's not a BFI, it's not a BFI, and just the titles, you're not thinking about it. Oh, it's BFI. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's not a BFI. They did some Hover stuff like Spetters and Flesh and Blood, which are nice to see.
Flesh and Blood was Eureka, I think.
What?
I'm pretty sure Flesh and Blood was Eureka. But
oh, yeah, it was actually. Spetters there.
Eureka Classics. But Spetters was for sure.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, they're doing stuff like that, and you're picking up stuff that just looks American, and he's like, you never thought you'd see. And you just get some interesting films from them all the time. I mean, BFI don't always announce stuff. And then eventually announce stuff is always something important. They don't do it on a monthly basis. It's like, when we've got something, we'll show you, but we're not going to do it every month. Which I think sometimes with Indicator, they're doing a monthly thing, and some months it's like good, and other months it's like, I'm not going to buy these. But I've spent a lot of money recently Indicator during a sale. I spent way too much. Ronin knows about this. I went way too far. I got all those stuff that I never had a chance to get before. I went way, way, way too far. And I got a lot of stuff I really wanted.
Objectively, I would say Indicator is one of those labels that you should wait for sales, unless it's something that you know is going to sell out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Indicator, for me, you know, I pre-order them from Indicator, but I would say to people, it's really one of those sales companies, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the box sets are usually worth the box sets. I mean, the Hammer stuff is amazing. The film noir stuff is amazing. They've got some really good stuff, but And they've got some really odd little films. Like I just got Who, with the one.
A wonderful little film.
Trevor Hard.
Yeah, stuff like that is like you'd never get anywhere else. That's what they do, is they get some films you'd never get. Indicator did Light Sleeper. They did Geronimo, which is wonderful. They've done lots of weird little films that no one else would release. Yeah. I mean,
the Blockhouse.
The interesting thing about Indicator, I think, to say is, like, you've named all those films, and in my head, I can tell you the filmmaker who made it. I can tell you the people acted in it. That speaks to how much cinematic history I've been able to accumulate by those releases. Never mind just watching the film. You know, I know an awful lot about those films because I tend to go right the way through those discs and kind of just take it all in and go, this is so rich. This is so interesting.
Yeah, it's also an indicator they've got all those BFI interviews that they put on the films as well, of all the different makers, from the people from Hammer to people from obscure films. You get loads of stuff that you would never see anywhere else. They've released stuff like Blue Collar, which is really hard to get. Hardcore. Lots of films you've been wanting for a long time. You could barely be releasing DVD. They've done a lot of really cool stuff and put stuff out that no one else would ever do. And a lot of times the titles that you never expect to see, and it's like, finally someone put this out. It might not be the greatest film ever, but it's something that's worth seeing. Which is, I think, is one of the things Indicator do really well. But also BFI has lots of stuff, like just released Naked, which has been out of print forever. And they do stuff like that all the time. That's really, really something. So they've also,
like, they've got Draftsman's Contract by Peter Greenaway coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. And that might be the most exciting kind of release coming out in the next 2 months for somebody like me to kind of say, oh, it's a 2-disc version and they're really going to town on it. And you go, see.
And I do like their new cases for the best ones. I know that's like a minor point, but I really like those new cases.
Alex Canovos.
Have you noticed every place we've talked to, a new film in the next few weeks I want to buy? We've talked to every one of them.
These are not the worst 8 labels, and we're trying to decide who the best is. I mean,
that is true. That's a very good point.
This is the creme de la creme.
These are the 8 places that have destroyed our bank accounts repeatedly. They've victimized us.
I should say about modern British cinema as well. Like, if I think about Afterlove, be it, you know, Muggle, whatever's way around that one. That is, again, I would not be seeing any of these films without a BFI release at all. So
do you want to vote then? Do you want to do another vote then? Since we've discussed
I will vote.
Right. So was it 3-2-1 again?
Yep.
Indeed.
Right. 3, 2, 1.
BFI.
I keep on losing. That's amazing.
That was a lot. That was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, to be honest.
So
do you know
BFI, what? I expected this one I was going to lose.
BFI is more important, if you like. But
I kind of expected not to get very far with that one. Even you was going to do BFI with that one. This was probably the easiest one for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought this was going to be the easiest one for me, but that was actually harder.
They're all great. I mean, again, if anybody wants to look at my collection, you'll see that, again, a very significant portion of it is BFI. And let's be honest, we're supporting the BFI in the ways that matter, which is ban the releases and kind of doing that. And the truth is, while you may have lost this vote, you'll probably win the popular vote, Peter. That's just the way that it always goes.
Yes. So... I'm just noticing the last 2 I've lost entirely, and it's like, whoa. Obviously, I'm pretty sure Ron's paid you off, Chris.
And some of them have been surprised by now.
Okay, so this is the last of the first groups. We have Eureka versus Studio Canal. So who wants to start this one?
I'll go.
Right.
I'll go. Okay, so Eureka will feel very grieved they're not in the top category, I think, for a start. But there's only 4 teams could enter to go in. I get that for sure. Eureka, I think, have changed a lot over the past kind of 2 or 3 years. I think the people behind the scenes have changed there. I think they have become almost back to the silent cinema company again, but silent cinema with kung fu.
Yeah.
as being what their classics line has become, and they're very happy in that niche. Like some of the silent films, we're going to get a 4K of a silent film. I keep on saying this. This is utterly bizarre that we get 4K releases of films that are that old and are that classic, and that I just can't wait for that Cabinet of Dr. Caligari to come out, because I think it's a great film. But Eureka, Eureka are a bit of a funny place, I think, in general, with the other Masters of Cinema stuff. So once they fall outside the silence, they're like, right, what have we got? So we've got spaghetti westerns that are in there, and occasionally these kind of like what have we had? A couple of Kirk Douglas films that came out recently and stuff like that, and then a couple of the Johnny Toe films that run out of time. Like Run Out of Time is in the Masters of Cinema range. First film's great. Second film's, I don't know whether that's in there. And Studio Canal are a company in terms of Blu-ray releasing. Obviously, they're a very enormous company that are very much on the rise, because again, they fall into this history of British cinema kind of thing, of really nice restorations of films that people forget about or have forgotten about, and watching through. Like I watched recently, Frida. I'd watched The Silent Enemy and a couple of others that are there. Check my letterboxd if the case may be. But they're really interesting releases of those films. They only have one or two extras, but they usually have somebody to talk authoritatively on.
Yeah, Matthew Sweet's usually.
Yeah, exactly. Matthew Sweet's very, very prominent in there. And the best bit about all Studio Canal stuff is the 4K box sets. They might be my favorite. They're literally the only 4Ks that I buy. Those releases are stunning. Highlander's out tomorrow, and they have the hardest box on them. And the older that I get and the more I collect, the more I realize that the quality of the box is actually so important in these purchasing decisions. It's come out like they did The Outsiders beforehand. They've done Flash Gordon, Total Recall, and really lovely hard box releases. Howling. Phenomenal. They might be my favorite part of Studio Canal.
Yeah, the reason why I did Eureka and the smaller ones, because they've changed the last few years, ultimately, because they have come down a lot bit more. They used to be much bigger into the big releases that were almost empowered BFI, but recently they have gone quieter. But doesn't mean bad. It means they've lots a lot of independent stuff like Donbass and things like that, and they're putting those out for cheaper prices.
Montage.
Yeah, so they've been doing a lot of stuff like that, and it's like, well, they've adapted slightly to the marketplace, but they've actually still strong, because I mean, this month they've just put out Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Most Dangerous Game. Recently, they've been doing Boris Karloff's Inner Sanctums. They've done
Monaco Mayhem.
Karloff things. You can see them behind me. There's a whole range of them. They've done Hands of Orlac. They've done tons of great horror movies I adore, just non-stop. They've just been doing them, and I need to buy the last catalog box set just come out that I haven't got yet. But it's just like they're doing that non-stop. The Kung Fu Cinematic Vengeance set was wonderful and silly as hell, but wonderful. So I mean, they do know the spot, but they're really doing it well. They've got Kim Newman stuff a lot, and they've got lots of like commentaries as well as people talking at the films. They just seem to know. I mean, they did seem for a while that they were unsure themselves, but now they just seem to be like a company you're always looking forward to seeing what they've got out. Because not every kung fu movie they get out that I really want, because they're like Jackie Chan, and I'm kind of depends with him really. But they do know what they're about, and there's always like there's always a case of they're probably worth a go if they're putting it out, because they actually do seem to care about having like good quality. Studio Canal, I buy less of, but we see what they've got. It's really good. They did The Lady Killers. It's in 4K as well.
Perfect.
They've got lots of stuff like that. I've got the 4K of Total Recall, and I've got 4K of a few different things from them. Just great titles. They've just got wonderful stuff. They're probably less prominent than Eureka in a way. They don't publicise themselves enough because they're actually a film studio as well. And this is just it's an arm for them. It's not the full thing. But yeah, I think they're underrated ones more than anyone else. because it's not the full business. So you might think of them less, but you always look at it and go, I've got quite a lot of these on in my collection. Way more than I expect.
I think it's testament to the work and improvements that they've done in this area, that even though they're a massive company, that they're involved in this conversation. You know, because like you could have, in theory, put Sony in here, Universal, any of those kind of ones, but they haven't made the grade because they aren't being as consistent, even with their packaging and stuff. Like that Vintage World Cinema line, I think is again one of the most underrated lines that there is. And they're releasing Jack Becker's films as a set now, which will hopefully increase the more people will see those because they're all absolutely fabulous.
Well, they're releasing Buñuel films.
Yeah.
And 4K. They've released Buñuel box sets, they've released Melville box sets, they've released Godard box sets.
Moldavar, yeah.
Yeah, they've done tons of stuff that no one gives them credit for. It's just like there's been like so much good stuff for them that we can't forget it's them because they're so everywhere. Yeah. So pass on to Ronin.
I don't think I've got anything to add, to be honest. I thought the Studio Canal would be the kind of weakest one out of the 8. But then when I actually look at my shelves, the vintage classics are absolutely wonderful. Yeah. The world cinema classics are absolutely wonderful. I was actually looking at that Becker set, and it's like I've actually got them all individually, but it would be nice to have them all in one place. That's a different story. Eureka, I feel their Masters of Cinema releases have obviously slowed down, but what they are releasing is still kind of wonderful. So sometimes quantity isn't always the best thing. For me, they're kind of focus onto martial arts stuff. I haven't really bought that many. I mean, I might at some point, but I'm not kind of interested in that at the moment. Obviously, I'm getting the Shaw second set as well. But that might be something I've revisited. So that's kind of helped me not spend as much money with Eureka recently, apart from the Masters of Cinema. Even although I'm not 4K, I'll probably get the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari because it's got a lovely book in it. But then I've got the Lady Killers in 4K and Studio Canal. I've got Flash Gordon in 4K.
He's not 4K, he's a lot of 4K things.
Yeah, I've got like 10 4Ks, but so this again, all of these beforehand seemed fairly straightforward, but when you actually get to the crutch of throwing one into space, it's actually a bit harder.
Yeah.
So even though Masters of Cinema is wonderful.
Yeah, range.
But again, I just have such a soft spot for those Studio Canal vintage. They're releasing The Sleeping Tiger, Belosi, a week tomorrow, I think. And some of those British films, again, they might not be masterpieces, but they give you a window into a certain period of time. The extras are done with love and affection.
They did The Criminal recently as well.
Yeah, The Criminal.
It's wonderful.
They're just so wonderful. And, you know, the Castor's getting a 4K by Becker.
That's right, so it is.
And those Becker films are a revelation. Jeanette Von Sondu, who does a lot of extras on the French films, is wonderful as well. I would check her extras out as well.
It's hard.
Yeah,
so this is a lot harder for this one than I thought it was going to be.
Because Eureka's also got those old ones that have come out, like they had they've had the Fritz Lang stuff, they had the Murnau stuff, they've had all these other things as well, a lot of silent stuff as well that are just wonderful. And they released the Mabuse films, and which everyone knows I'm really into. So
they released Mr. Vampire.
I know.
Which was a film that I first saw at Christmas in BBC Two, like 30 years ago. And to get that on a Blu-ray is just wonderful.
The Bride with White Hair, which is wonderfully odd.
It's a mental film.
And the what was the
King Hu films?
Yeah, King Hu is amazing. They've done the what was that one? The Zoom Mountain Warriors.
Warriors was.
Which I showed to my nephew, and it confused the hell out of him. He was like, he was lost.
Brilliant though.
I know he was like, I can say it gets weirder. Trust me. How can it get weirder than this? And it always get weirder.
So Encounters of Spooky Kind and all sorts of just terrific stuff.
Do I choose then?
Yes.
Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Eureka.
Yeah.
That was harder. That was closer.
I know. That really was.
It kind of comes down to me for if I was to take one of those labels out of my collection, which would I feel the miss of more? And the Master Cinema collection, even though it's not as strong or as consistently releasing as it previously was, that catalogue is terrific. It stands up with any other series of films that's been released. But a big thumbs up to Studio Canal because I think their output is constantly interesting.
So we're now down to the semi-finals.
But should we do some honourable mentions for a couple of labels that never were involved?
Sure, no problem.
I'll throw 2 out there. Second Sight.
Yeah.
Who release so infrequently, it's probably not worth, talking about. But again, terrific box sets and ones that I keep on saying, God, I don't need that version of that film. And then as soon as it drops by £1, I'm like, oh God, I might get this immediately.
Yeah.
All those. And then 88 would be the other one that I'd definitely have to speak
I'll
up
do
for.
101 films as well.
101, that's certainly as well.
Yeah, but that's like 88 and 101 because they're such similar names. Like you think that an 88 film is 101 film and vice versa, and you always go to the wrong website, or at least I do, and it's like, no, that's the other one. Bugger, you go to the other site now.
Like 88 are terrific.
I would bring up Imprint, which might be in the discussion for later years.
Not obviously, by me, because of all my history of the mail system and it's been a nightmare.
I know they are cost prohibitive, which is a shame. But again, some of their releases are absolutely wonderful. Granted, some of the releases have since been released by other companies, which is a little disappointing as well. If
and not if you
extra
didn't
money.
get that version, and you get the other company's version, I'm pretty happy with them. That would be.
But I do think they are releasing films that other people haven't released. One False Move, Save the Tiger, Desiree North Dallas 40, to mention just a few. So
Hunter's Way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously
coming out with
Fun City as well.
Yeah. And Danger Diabolique was a good one. The Beast.
I mean, obviously they make it cheaper by getting their bundle, but then you don't always want everything that's in their bundle. I haven't got to that indicator stage, thankfully. Plus, their bundle is so variable, so it's not as if it's the one price every month, depending if it's a single release, box set, double release. So it ranges from like 150 Australian dollars to like 350 Australian dollars.
It's 420, isn't it? Next month with the Neo Noir, it's like, what in the world?
Plus, the other thing is they don't seem to be making that many copies.
Yeah,
it's fairly obvious people are buying them to then sell them on eBay.
I mean, that's how I got into Diabolique, because I don't want to buy it more pricier on eBay to get it.
So maybe as they get bigger, they might print more runs.
I think they have to do something. It's just like it's not great.
I don't know whether it's taken them by surprise as well, but
we've also got Scream Factory and Shout Factory in America that do some nice stuff, nice genre stuff as well.
And Vinegar Syndrome, as I
I still haven't got the Vinegar Syndrome bug.
I kind of flew down and out once in a bit.
I think Man v Film Graham's doomed for Vinegar Syndrome bug. I think he's
so much
orders,
doesn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty much attached to my veins level. It seems at times.
Vinegar Syndrome is a funny label. It's because it's one of those ones you look at from a distance and go, God, I'm glad I'm not into any of that. And then you watch one or two of the films and you go, I'm sort of into a bit of this.
Yeah.
And there's no other way to get most of those films at all, so you just have to go down that route. So,
and then obviously some people might have the same feeling about Indicator.
That's true.
Those films don't kind of interest me, but then once you actually watch them, it's like, That was fab.
There's another few potentials. I mean, you've got Radiance coming out, which looks really good, really interesting.
Yes.
I'll be interested to see how that goes. You know, and it just seems like the market has opened up to new places. Like people have left their old places and doing their own thing again. So there is a lot of potential there. But it's also there's only so many titles are good. You might run out of titles eventually.
But Radiance is certainly something to keep an eye on. I mean, I've pre-ordered a bunch already because obviously it's releasing Petrie's Working Class Go to Heaven, which is fantastic.
Spine number 1 too.
Yep. And the Franco Nero box set looks fantastic as well.
And another box set to be announced this weekend as well.
Oh, we're dead. So, we're now going to the Group 1. Arrow versus Indicator.
Oh, man. I might have a heart attack.
Hey, do you want me to start with this one then? Since
yes, well, I gather myself indeed.
Gather yourself and
right.
Inject yourself with adrenaline.
Yes. So I mean, and this one comes down to taste of ones you prefer. Both have done the great stuff. Both have talked about the Indicator. Have done those Hammer stuff, those noir things. Have done a lot of obscure films that need release but haven't had a good release. They've been doing them. They've been bringing them up and polishing them up and giving them good transfers and making sure some of the quality of some of those transfers are amazing for the sources. I mean, if you look at the Hammer one, the Robin Hood, they look great for what they've probably had for low budget stuff. The Hammer stuff has been amazing, and some of the stuff they've been getting from America, from Colombia, have been great as well, and just lots of really cool films. Arrow's had a lot longer to put a good library together. They've got lots of really cool stuff and some really great box sets even now, and they've had some great titles in the past, like the Edgar Allan Poe things. They've had the all those gangster movies from Japan that are stunning, that cost just takes so much of my money away from me. They're amazing.
I'm getting into the Masamura.
Yeah.
Oh, so Red Angel, Spectacular Blind Beast.
Still to see that one.
Black Test Car. Oh,
Giants and Toys is wonderful.
Giants and Toys is brilliant.
I haven't watched that yet.
Still relevant.
Yeah, very much so.
And you've got stuff like Animal Factory, which we barely got a release, but finally released it. I adored Animal Factory. So things like that. They do To Live and Die in LA, just stuff, and even just weirder films by big directors, like they did the freaking one, the one with Pacino,
Cruising,
which we'd never expect to be seen here because of PC. They did it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done a lot of weird films, Dead End Driving, things like that are you would not expect a company to do. So they've done. I mean, we typify them as, they do the 80s slasher stuff, but that's a small part of their.
It's such a small part, yeah.
But you actually look at it. I mean, you look at the Shawscope stuff is amazing. The G1 stuff's coming out. The Ring stuff they did. That Ring box set was wonderful. They've got a massive library of great stuff, which I think Criterion has. They've got a massive library as well that most other places can't compete with. But Indicator is building that library just now, which is something different.
Yeah, you kind of forget Indicator hasn't actually been around that long, but they've managed to.
3 years, is it? 4 years?
Yeah,
something
3 or 4
like
years.
that.
I mean, Arrow do have lovely new shiny slipcovers as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at two different companies, one that is grown and one that is now kind of evolving. So it's two different areas, really.
I'll be interested to see, obviously, what type of films they go for in 4K once they do it, the Indicator, because obviously none of their titles would kind of automatically, or obviously fall into, we need a 4K of this at the outset. So that'll be interesting to see what.
I mean, I would say what Indicator, obviously their decision to make some Region A only titles, isn't ideal for everybody, especially people who
for a numbered line, especially.
So I don't know how long that's going to last or whether that's going to continue. And then obviously 4K. I'm hoping the 4K has a Blu-ray with it, because otherwise then that will be the push that makes me go 4K, which is quite sad. But
why is it sad? It's a healthy thing. 4K is good format. It's
no,
this,
I mean it's the fact that it's just because Indicator's doing a 4K, then that's the tipping point.
you're not selling your soul to the devil when going 4K. It's just another format. It's just a bit better.
You've got to think about it. It wasn't the thing 4K that pushed them over the top. It's Indicator going. I think that's a testament itself to how
it's not
important.
the 4K format. It's the fact that I will buy all the films I have again on 4K. That's the issue.
I'm determined not to do that. He says
Yeah, me
he's
neither.
just said he's very excited about Caligari.
But then you go Caligari.
But the thing is, you don't really need most of them. It's just that there's certain ones like, oh, it'd be nice on 4K. But most of them, it's like, I don't really care. I'm not that bothered.
My feeling about that is also as well, like if the Caligari 4K box set bombs, we're not getting any other ones. You know what I mean? So if you want to get films like that, get that kind of treatment, you kind of have to support it.
Yeah, but my big problem is I bought the Caligari box set last time with all the extra stuff in it as well. And it's like, again, for a film I'm not actually that keen on. I mean, it was Metropolis, I'm better, but this one is like, I don't really like Caligari that much. It's not one of my favorites.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I think that probably it helps that they've put like 100-page hard book in there.
Yeah,
because I think, see if they just released it as like an Amare case as a 4K, it might not sell as much as here's a deluxe box with a nice big book and the 4K.
For sure. Yeah. The other thing I'll say about that, because you did mention a lot of Arrow's so diverse in what they do. Like you were talking earlier on about the Ishe films, both in terms of like things like Burst City, but also the ones like Horrors of Malformed Men. Yeah. I don't know who else is doing Horrors of Malformed Men either. Like it's that film's so absolutely out there. That
I just watched Inferno Torture.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it's just barking.
Yeah, they've also done Kieslowski as well as Gamera films. It's like they do a whole range. They did the ones what do you call it? My brain's gone. 9 hours long. Great film.
Human Condition.
Human Condition.
We've done that. We've done all these great films that people also, I will just do the horror. I was like, no, they did these as well. They've shut down our Academy, but who knows if it's all going to be one thing now, really, because
there's that release coming out this month. There's that French film Incredible But True that's sort of in this month's release slate that was very obviously would have been Arrow Academy.
Yeah,
if it had been still about. So
they'll just print it all together now into one label rather than having split labels. That might just be the case from now on. Who knows? But it's like they've released stuff that take guts that maybe other people would not have done. I mean, the Battles of Humanity and Honor, both sets there as well. I mean, those are films that are impossible to get for years, and they get released. And so many of the gangster films from that era have got released through Arrow. Yeah. And Indicator released so many films that you would never see as well from America, that you would, the Big Fix and things like that, you would never see. So they're releasing stuff as well that is almost impossible to find.
The Baedeker Westerns, which is just
amazing. The Fuller films, so many great things. Yeah. But the Stanley Long box set, you know.
Yeah, but they just did Harryhausen box set.
The Panini organization also, you know, I mean, they've done. I do it mostly for Jess.
Wild Castle stuff, great stuff. Yeah. They went a bit far one time, but is that any worse than some of the Arrow stuff they did? Than some of the slasher stuff they did. Some of the slasher stuff Arrow's put out have been terrible as well. It's like, they both got those titles that they released for the people to see it.
That's right,
but they don't like them as much, but it's just like, well, this is a title to be released. At least I did dignity not to buy it.
Yeah, maybe they're looking at, these strange people that don't actually buy every single release. They actually pick and choose the films that they like. I know
what's that all about?
It's crazy, but maybe that's how they look at it.
Yeah.
Just buy what you like or something, or that you've seen.
I will say, I think probably Arrow is the company that have the most titles.
It is the company I have the most titles for.
Probably.
Yeah, but Indicator are catching up pretty fast, I think, for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But
You are even though you talked about it, you did buy the regional releases.
I did buy them, and 2 out of the 3 are absolutely fantastic.
See, so you're a man of your principle and a man of
Yeah,
your word.
Yeah.
they cost a little bit more, but
As long as they're good quality.
Deborah Carr as a working class
Yeah,
girl has to be seen to be believed,
there you go.
and the Orders to Kill film is just
Um,
amazing. I would
see,
urge you
bargains,
to get
both of
that
them.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was like they're giving you money.
yeah. Another one is available in BFI.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right. Loving the
That's
just
why
when
they
you
donuts.
feel
had
Yeah.
to release it
guilty
regionally.
about not choosing BFI, they also released Werner Herzog collection, just so you two feel
That's
guilty.
right.
Yes. Bizarrely, as did Shout Factory, released 2
Yeah.
volumes of Herzog.
Yeah, that's right. I did.
And they've released lots of Asian films like Korea and stuff as well, so I feel guilty as well. Why don't
Yeah.
you? So we're going to choose then, since we've talked about this.
Yes.
We're
But
going
this
to,
one's tougher now than I thought it was.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've changed my
so
mind 3 times since we started
Yeah,
talking.
that's
yeah. So 3, 2, 1, go.
into the future.
Arrow.
So Arrow won then.
That was
And
almost unanimous, I have to say. It wasn't as clear
Yeah.
cut as a.
When we started, I fully expected to say Indicator actually, until somebody said the words Masamura. And then I was like, oh, you're
Yeah.
right, you know.
yeah, no.
The,
Uh,
the kind
I
of
think I mean I can make Ronin Wheat with Kieslowski.
the
Yeah.
kind of unfamiliar Japanese cinema that Arrow
Yeah.
release is wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obviously not unfamiliar to everybody, but
Yeah.
unfamiliar to me.
Sure.
Right. So we're now going for the group 2, which is
This is exhausting.
Second Run
Yeah.
versus Eureka. Right, I started last time, so someone else has to start this time. I think it's Ronin's turn.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
God, this is about volume and peaks, isn't it? Obviously, I have a ton of Masters of Cinema releases. I'm nowhere near to being close, and I never will be, because again, very much like Criterion, not everything interests me. But I do have a huge chunk of Masters of Cinema,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't actually think of a film that I have in Masters of Cinema that I will never watch again.
Great point.
Part of that is obviously my brilliant taste, but this, there is 2 or 3 second runs that I've got that I'm probably not going to revisit at least for a while. But I can't really think of any in the Masters of Cinema that I'm never going to watch again or
This
wouldn't
is a
watch again.
challenge. Run at a time too.
Yeah, but then again, there's some in second run I'd watch more than the Masters of Cinema ones though as well. That's kind
Yeah, I'm just trying
of, that's kind of the
explain
issue.
it.
So I
Try to
haven't made
create
my
a
mind up yet.
rationale.
I haven't made my mind up, but
Yeah,
come
I'm
on,
just trying to
yeah.
tread water.
As he
And obviously,
panics.
yeah, obviously the Eureka kind of only selection of things like Cujo and The Dark Half and Sabata films, as I'm looking at my shelves. But those Karloff sets are just
Yeah.
so fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. And Eureka, not the only company, but one of those companies that has given us films that are now almost 100 years old in
Mad.
brilliant quality with really good commentaries. So even their line that isn't massive cinema, which some people might dismiss because there is some horror stuff in there, but they're generally just so good. But again, second run have opened my eyes to stuff that I would never be aware of. I mean, obviously, there's stuff in Eureka that I am aware of, but second run, there's so many that are literally out of left field, no pun intended. And obviously, I've still got the second run DVDs to watch, let alone the Blu-rays. So I still have probably double the amount of DVDs in my backlog to watch in second run. But again, that's what Chris said about Eureka and Studio Canal. He took one line away how would you feel? And again, this is really tough. So I'm obviously not going to make a decision. I'll let other people sweat it for a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, this one is, I think it is a case of these are the underdog labels in a sense that they get the less press, so you feel more protective of them, really, more than the bigger labels can take care of themselves. But yeah, I mean, Second Run have done so many great films that I have absolutely adored, but so has Eureka. Eureka have done so much for silent film. They've done so much for obscure silent film, like films like Waxworks and things that you would never see normally. You know, and honestly, the kung fu stuff I really enjoy too because I like kung fu movies. They're my go-to for a Saturday afternoon silly movie. They're my thing for that. That's my kind of enjoyment for the silly films. So they cover both art house and silly. It's unusual for one company to do both. And it's a case of they've actually both companies have titles I could not think of doing without. I mean, really, they're both like just amazing.
Yeah.
And
but it is a semi-final. You know,
yeah,
it's not round robin. This is almost impossible. And it's impossible because you're kind of comparing apples with oranges in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, you have the very storied and large catalogue of Masters of Cinema, which is a lot of the greatest films ever made in it. And then you have this kind of niche collection of bizarro films in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many copies of Vampire Kardashian sold.
I mean, I keep on saying this about Vampire Kardashian. You know this yourself. It might be the worst film of all time, but it also might be one of the greatest films of all time. That's bizarre. Yeah.
But without Second Run, I would have never experienced that.
It opened my eyes to different type of filmmaking. Like that's the truth. And I will say, Master of Cinema, there are films that certainly I'll watch them all the time, but there are also some of them are sort of a bit forgettable. You know, like another noir film. You like to have those. There's ones like what The Sunshine's Bright. Good film. It's all right. Like Woman in the Window, you know, Cloak and Dagger. They're all good films. Those Lang noirs.
Yeah, tread carefully.
I like them a lot. Fan of them. Yeah, I mean,
Woman in Windows, I think is amazing. I think it's a stunner.
Yeah, Cloak and Dagger, I think, is okay. I think Gary Cooper's miscast. But...
I like that one a lot too.
I mean, I would say, I suppose, Eureka, some of the films are available somewhere else. So I suppose you could
say the same thing about Second Run with some of the more prominent. Like the thing I'll say about Second Run is that at least the War trilogy is the first set of films that I've actually heard of when they've announced them. You know, they're even in the sphere of, oh God, yes, I recognize these films. Basically, everything else has been like new to me at some stage, or has been released by Criterion or something that got into the sphere of influence, like those, like the Cremator and 20th Century and.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the peaks, but then the peaks of Eureka are some of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, we're going to have to make a choice now. We're going to have to.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Okay, right. So we're going 3, 2, 1.
Eureka.
Second Run.
That was difficult.
Yeah, no, I was.
This isn't going the way I thought it was going to go.
No, I was wanting to go Second Run, but I was like, Eureka just have too much of my favorite films. They just have too many of them. Like, there's just too. You know, it's like if you had to play my numbers game and they've got too many.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the numbers is kind of skewing it a little bit as far as, you know, if Second Run had the same amount of titles as Eureka, or
Yeah.
Indicator had the same amount of titles as Arrow.
And I don't know, I think it's just a case of, it depends, go to one to the other. Just when you compare them, it's like, okay, this one just has too many great titles. Like, pretty much everything I thought would have been doing well here has already gone. And the two that was left, I thought would be gone pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought Arrow would be eliminated first.
I know, it's like, so did that. And I thought Eureka would have problems too. Like,
I thought,
to be fair, I did vote for Criterion over Arrow. It's you two that are wrong.
Well, I kind of thought this whole thing would go, this is a very tough choice, but actually Criterion are probably still the top dog.
I know, and they were out first thing. So we've actually reached the final. The finale. We've got the surprising finalists.
Stunning, some might say.
Yeah, I know. It's
we should ask in the comments for who you thought the final was going to be.
Yeah, because you probably thought the same as us before we started. Because
I would say our tastes would be quite well known as well. I thought this was going to be utterly predictable.
Yeah, it's really not.
Power of three.
I blame you two for choosing second window over the third window. I think that was the thing that went all wrong after that.
It's been a long and torturous road.
Oh dear.
Yeah, because bizarrely, see if third window against Eureka, I'd have voted for third window over Eureka, but
I'd have voted for Eureka.
Oh yeah, so it's like weird taste.
So it's still
yeah.
Although I said that about a whole load of things, I thought I would vote for lots of things over another thing, and then I thought I was going to vote for Criterion over Arrow at the very first.
Yeah, I thought so too. Actually, I was going to vote for Criterion as well.
I did vote for Criterion over Arrow.
Yeah, but I think Criterion UK just killed it. I think they just destroyed it. So we've got the final finale. We've got Arrow versus Eureka for the finale.
Well, it's two labels that have similar size of release.
That's true.
Actually, I think Eureka's less than.
Yeah, well,
that's true. But
they've got both got a massive library. Both you can go through the library and go, wow, look at this, wow, look at that, wow, that's really amazing. But it's
both on the good side and the bad side.
Yeah, they've both got a couple of dodgy items, a couple of bland items, and they've both got some stunning items. It's like, wow, they did that.
Two labels where the slipcover game is particularly strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arrow with their fluorescent shiny ones.
Oh, it's the ones
rivaling Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So but the both companies with licenses are starting to go now, which is also kind of weird. There's like we're choosing them for films that might no longer be with them for very long.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that way because they're both kind of adjusting. So this is in a year or two, if you did it again, these two could be out of sorts because their library might be kind of a lot lesser compared to other places.
I do think Eureka are in a funny position now here over the next 2 years. They've managed to find another set of silent movies, but again, once they're exhausted of that, and we're out of Universal Karloff films, and we're out of, well, you never seem to run out of Kung Fu films, but there's diminishing returns, I think, in the Kung Fu films.
Yeah. And Arrow, we have to see where they're going, because I think nobody knows where they're going. They've lost the guy to Radiant.
That's right.
They do seem to be a fair bit of adjustment. It happened with Bob Zavi. It's like, are they going to become fully commercial? Because I think they've got so far in this thing because of their past and their history, rather than all of the current output. Some of the current output is still really good, and some of it is less so. But I think a lot of the titles we've been voting for came out a few years ago.
I'm really buoyed by their January slate, because there are 3 movies that aren't exactly, 3 quite diverse sets, and they all tick different kind of fan bases. So I think So it's all
interesting to see because I thought they've been a bit weak lately, but the last 3 or 4 months have had a lot of really good stuff. So maybe they're kind of coming around again. So it's kind of weird. But a lot of the stuff that everyone loves came a few years ago, but now they've adjusted so that it was like, oh, no, in a year or two, have become much more commercial, rather than just a period adjustment with new people in charge. It's like, it's a kind of weird area.
Yeah, it's kind of weird for me because this is probably the two labels that I'm buying the least of. I mean, part of that is I do have a lot of them, but but obviously that Italian Gothic, I'll probably pick up once it goes down in sale.
Coming today for me.
Because again, I think I've learned my lesson of not buying arrows at full price. I haven't done that for a while. And obviously the Croupier I'm looking forward to because the second disc is a documentary Mike Hodges, which is like a feature length.
That's amazing. That extra
appreciated director. One day I hope to do a series on him. So it's funny. I'm not buying as much of them, but they are still putting out things that I pick up. Obviously, the 3 that they released, Eureka released, I pre-ordered them immediately. Most Dangerous Game and the Karloff set, which is the best Karloff set in my opinion. So it's interesting to see them here, but they are probably 2 of the labels that I have the most of.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird with Arrow is that they do have so much good stuff. You just don't realize, you forget about it, how many items you've got. And if you look at some of the Kieslowski set, how much was that box set? It was stunning. You had booklets, you had tons of extras, you'd lost it forever. They did this early film as well. No one else was doing that, and Arrow did put the money up and did that.
I mean, I think, to be fair, it's easy to knock Arrow at the moment, and obviously the retreading of Argento.
Yes.
Which I bought all of. And actually are really good, ultimately.
That does let them do other things, like the Damaging set, which nobody was really interested in, but they're amazing. Or the Chabrol sets. I haven't even mentioned the Chabrol sets.
Oh, so fantastic. The artwork and the
nobody
Chabrol
was
sets
releasing
especially.
Chabrol sets. We could do that too, please, but never mind. I forgot to even mention them. So they were wonderful for me, the Fassbinder.
Also, actually, see if you buy stuff in streaming, right? To be honest, Arrow has a great streaming service and also release stuff quite cheap. Service. So there's films you buy in disc, you can buy them for like £3 in iTunes sometimes, and you can get the film just to see it, nothing else, and it's really good quality. And those Argento sets we all complained about, I've got them. They're gorgeous restorations.
Me too.
They're really gorgeous. And they were worth the money ultimately. And it was like, well, I complained to start with, but actually I've got them all and they were worth it.
Because they're not actually as expensive as like the Scream Factory 4Ks and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you can complain about Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, but the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves is a gateway thing for other people. Like you know, and if it enables more interesting, if it enables a Chabrol set, for instance, you know, the selling of that, then absolutely, that's a bloody great trade-off for anybody. I don't have to love everything.
Yeah, I mean, no label can just release all these obscure films that nobody wants to see, apart from Second Run, maybe. They need some titles of recognition.
So. That's right.
Yeah, because Robin Hood is Morgan Creek, and they released stuff like Exodus 3 from Morgan Creek and Nightbreed.
That's right.
And True Romance and stuff like that. So they must have a relationship with them to release their old titles. And there's rumours of Last of the Mohicans is from Morgan Creek as well. Right. So it must be a relationship with that company. And
or I'd be very excited
the commercial one.
Last of the Mohicans I will definitely be there for. It's a terrific film. Yeah.
And again, you can knock Waterworld, but Arrow's release of Waterworld with like the 4 different
terrific.
Cuts
it was
and the documentary's fantastic.
Yeah. And again, Robin Hood and Waterworld are both with Kevin Reynolds, who's an interesting director who had a hard time with studios, but he's an interesting director. It's like he did The Beast, he did Fandango. It's like there's no shame in releasing stuff from him. His stuff's really good. So it's
I mean, it will sell a ton.
Yeah. And again, those streaming things, I've bought a lot of stuff in streaming and I'm buying it in disc. Like I bought Top Law Detective in streaming, never bought it in disc. The same with El Duchy tapes. Because it's like you see it and you're like, oh, this is really good. I should
So
Yeah,
El
pretty
Duchy
much.
Tapes is a really interesting one because it's another one of those things. You spend the first half of the film going, who commissioned a film about this? We shouldn't be making films about these kind of people. And then you get the end of it and go, that was fabulous.
Yeah,
That was really interesting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I mean, Arrow do take those kind of risks and those weird items. It's just like, will they keep doing it, or is this the end of the old era still coming out? The stuff they commissioned last year or things. We don't know yet.
Yeah, you could
Again,
say that
do
about
the short
Eureka as
scope.
well. It's like,
Short
yeah,
scope's great.
I think Arrow have had that sit down as a company. I think probably when Fran left, they kind of went, right, what are we going to do? What direction is where do we see ourselves doing in another 5-10 years? Because they have such a diverse range of interests and films, etc., that they could go in many different directions. And I'm really buoyed and excited for Arrow.
Yeah.
For the next while, I have to say.
Because they got a lot of criticism instead of just going into commerciality or going into obscure. They've just kept going and said, we're going to release some good stuff, we're going to release some commercial stuff, and you're going to get something you like. You might not get it every month, and to be honest, when I see months where I don't see something I want, it's like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
because another labels usually get something you do.
Yeah, also I got a breather. I don't have to spend a fortune on these things. Like, I've just done December. I mean, like, late in November, you've got the Shawscope, then you've got Criterion, then you've got the Eureka collection. I mean, it's like how much more damage than what.
And again, I know this is weird, but you don't have to buy everything, and I think that's the
I can't
message.
subscribe to this. I just can't.
I feel miserably in this idea,
and you're not going to like everything.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
I think
Eureka the same way though. Eureka recently, I've been buying a fortune full of stuff from them as well, and it's like, wow, this is like non-stop. This is like,
I mean, bizarrely, I will buy Eureka at full price, but I won't buy Arrow at full price.
Even though Eureka's probably dear,
yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, like, I bought Arrow at full price as well, but I've got the vouchers for the website. Like, that paid for a lot of my Shawscope Volume 2, all my vouchers saving up all year. That really helped a lot.
The way they deliver now has kind of put me off Arrow from the website. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think also the other take-home message is we live in a period that we are so lucky to have all these labels, and the amount of films that we would never see that were assumed lost that we're actually getting on Blu-ray or in some cases 4K. So, I mean, yes, there can only be one winner who survives, but the take-home message is we do live in a really wonderful time for film work.
Yeah, I shall say, like, most times the game has just come out, right? And let's back Notre Dame, two films that are almost impossible to get, even in decent DVD for decades. Never got, both of them have been restored, and they're just out, and it's like you actually buy them full price with extras, and you have to see them properly, which has been a problem for years, for decades even.
Yeah,
and you know that's just through Eureka, really.
Yeah.
So we have to choose. I'm afraid we have to. I still don't know what I'm choosing yet. It's like, but we're going to do 3, 2, 1, okay, and 3, 2, 1, go.
Arrow.
Yeah. I just knew it was going to be Arrow.
I cannot believe that though.
Sure,
I cannot believe that.
I should have suspected when I made my first choice that it was going to end up here.
Cannot believe
that. I didn't. I thought Indicator would have beat Arrow. Then after that, I thought Second Run possibly would have for me, although I knew it would have been a bit of a tougher choice for others.
No, it's just like, but actually, the reality is you forget how good Arrow actually is.
Yeah, I think it's recency bias.
It's just been a bit cynical about Arrow for a while, and it's like, no, they actually have been consistently great. It's just like
because Second Run are relatively new, Indicator are relatively new, you've maybe got them in your mind more.
And they've all done such great stuff.
Yeah,
they have.
I mean, even Criterion, but Criterion, I think it's over here isn't as strong as something that Arrow is. I think if going back to this, if it was American, they probably beat Arrow, but the UK version doesn't.
Yeah, I've imported a lot this year. For sure.
We have to make an effort to import a lot through Criterion. It's not a natural British one, no. I mean, I was actually amazed they've actually released Baron Munchausen over here as well.
Yeah.
But I've got a bunch of stuff to buy from Criterion in 4K, like Inland Empire and the Lynch stuff. Right. I just can't afford it just now, but I will get there. It's just I haven't really the chance yet.
I would recommend you pick up Buck and the Preacher, which I was actually surprised got a Region B. But
it's also available on streaming. If you can't afford the Criterion, you can get it in streaming.
Yeah.
You can rent it streaming even probably for a few quid quite easily and see it. So,
just too dear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, we Criterion, they go 2 for 25. That shows I'm going to start picking them up.
That's right. And they don't go out of print. You know, there's something to be said for how that influences your purchasing decisions. You know, the fact that I can wait for sale for that, no problem. Whereas that Gothic Fantastico set possibly sells out, or, you know, any of the box sets possibly sell out.
Yeah, I mean, the Gothic Fantastico set is like, I'll get it eventually if it's available. I don't have too many other things I really want. It's like, it's just not a priority to me. I've got enough of my money from recently. I just can't give them any more of it.
Yeah, I used to buy the premium collection 2 for 25, and now I just wait for the 2 for 15. So
for the ones that are there,
yeah, because they don't really sell out either. So.
Yeah, you can get what you need there, and you can. I mean, last time they did 2 for 15, I went through and got so many old films, like a lot of the really ones I'd missed. And you can get some really good stuff.
You know, Arrow on sale is when I'll now buy Arrow. Yeah. Like I say, I've got enough of a backlog at the moment. So.
Yeah. And recently I bought Arrow, a lot of it's been the Third Window and Side One Through Arrow as well. Yeah. But then again, when I'm going to buy Arrow, I'm going to buy it because there's lots of stuff there that's really good. But there's other stuff I won't. It's just like obscure horror films I probably won't buy. But if it's something like Ju-On or something like Shawscope, I will buy it.
Yeah. Or if one of you fine gentlemen do a review of it. So.
Yeah, and we're going to absolutely destroy everyone else's bank account. Thanks, Ronin, by the way. Generally, the last few weeks have really been helpful that way.
No bother.
It's
a fun exercise either.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes.
Well, a fun exercise for sure, though.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Didn't end up the way I thought it would.
Well, they're all winners, ultimately. They're all great. It doesn't really matter. This was a fun exercise. It wasn't that. I think the whole thing we get from Ultimate, from the choices, how hard it's been, is like all of them are worth looking after because they're all great. Because we've struggled with everyone, even the ones we didn't think we'd struggle with because we started thinking about it too much. So it's like, I mean, that's the thing. Yes. My choice was Third Window. And I get slaughtered straight away. That was the one to go through the whole thing with. That was the one I was going to choose. That's the one I was hoping for, and I get killed straight away.
I mean, obviously, my heart would be Vindicator, but unfortunately, sometimes your brain gets involved.
Yeah, I know. It's like that was the thing. It's like at least Indicator lasted the second round. Mine's get killed in the first round. So it's like my premium choice get killed first round.
You should have brought Huss on, other than you're living.
Yes.
Yeah, the next time we need to have 11 people, so.
And that would last 10 hours.
Yeah. Less pressure.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the recording. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for coming,
thanks
Chris.
Thanks for inviting me.
And you probably noticed my face is getting darker through the whole time because it's getting rainier and rainier in Scotland.
I was going to say, Scotland's taken over.
Yeah. So it started out bright and it get dark and quietly dark and through the whole time.
The clocks going back wasn't supposed to be affected this early, though.
Yeah, well, there we go. So thank you all, and see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.